Hey everybody, how's it going? So in this video I'm going to continue on animations, and more specifically in this video I'm going to spend time in transitions. And the transitions I'm going to be looking at is basically explaining how these ones work, the ones that I've got currently up here, as well as how we can perform entry level states, just say coming from a component that's just suddenly loaded and it transitions in, or it's being destroyed and it transitions out. And this will probably lead into a later video where I'll show you how you can transition your components in using routes. Okay, so let's get started. So if you don't remember, in the previous video we had an array of tasks that were defined in a component. That component then basically took those tasks and passed it down into this app task component. This task component basically is an article, and it just displays the name of the task and description of the task, but it also had this animation flag set on it, which was linked to a status property inside of our component. And this task status was basically a value set for each individual state in the task component. So, for example, the task status here is set to unhighlighted, and we have a state with a value of unhighlighted. And then we have other states for highlighted and activated, and basically they're the three states in question. And then inside of that component, we came over and we had a mouse over event, a mouse out event, and a click event. For when the mouse goes over, it will toggle the status from, I think it was unhighlighted to highlighted, and the mouse out would do from highlighted to unhighlighted, and then when you clicked it, it would toggle the activated state on and off. So let's come back and look at what we've got here, and you can see down here I had the tasking status of highlighted to unhighlighted, if we're toggling the status on mouse over or mouse out, and then we had the toggle down here. I've been through all that in the previous video. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. However, at the end of the video, I briefly may have explained these transitions, but I didn't go into too much depth and didn't really explain some of the scenarios you can use with these transitions. So what's a transition? If you didn't watch the previous video, essentially what it is it allows you to slowly change the value of these CSS properties that are associated with each state, from the value set in one state to the value set in another state, right? So for example, if I'm going from, and we'll look at this first transition here, highlighted to unhighlighted, we have a background color for highlighted, which was set to #33A, right? But for unhighlighted, we set it to #127, okay? So basically what happens is, when we're going from this state to this state, which is indicated by typing the initial state, this little equals an arrow to, which means from this to this, right, which is unhighlighted, we're changing that background color from 33A to 127. Now this is all happening over a period which is specified by this animate function, in which case it's essentially over 150 milliseconds. Now this ease in part I'm not going to really mention in this video, just simply because I need to spend more time on showing you how ease ins work in Angular 2. Well, not just Angular 2, but basically JavaScript in general. So that's kind of what goes on. You get, over the course of 150 milliseconds, the browser will attempt to change the background of the ticket from #33A to #127. Okay, and we can see this when we go from highlighted to unhighlighted, which happens when we mouse out of this. Right, so currently we're mousing over. As we mouse out, you'll see that the color slowly changes back to that dull color over the course of 150 milliseconds. Now, to give you a better idea of how this works, if I was to now increase this value to something ridiculous like maybe 15 seconds, right, you'll see a slow progression in the color. You'll also see some other things change, But ideally, just look at the color just to start off with this. So as I hover out, it's going to slowly change. So it's over the course of 15 seconds. You can see the borders disappearing. It's starting to straighten up a little bit, and the color's slowly becoming that blue color. Now, I think that was probably too long to really show what was going on there. Maybe I'll put it over the course of, let's say, 6 seconds and save. So let's try that once more. Refresh. I'll hover over. It's pretty instantaneous. It'll move away, and you can see now it slowly starts to move its way back to that dull color. Okay. What you also saw was there was a border specified here in the highlight state, and then in the unhighlighted state we didn't have a border specified here. So as a result, when we hover over, we see that border, but when we hover away, over the course of time, that border starts to disappear. And that's pretty much the purpose of animation. Now, the thing that I'll mention as well is unhighlighted didn't specify a border, right? But highlighted does, okay? So you might think, oh, because this doesn't specify a border, then it's when we go back to an unhighlighted state, we shouldn't have a border. This is not correct. So, for example, if I come into the task.component and I actually set a border on this, so if I go border is equal to, let's say, 1 pixel solid red, and I'll take this away in a minute. I just need to put the semicolon there and save. You'll see by default they're set to red now because I set them not in the part of the state, but overall for the actual article. Right, so this is going to allow me to change it on there. But now when I hover back out, over the course of 6 seconds, you're going to see that slowly also become red. Right, so that's the behavior. So just because I didn't specify it inside of here doesn't mean that it won't take effect. Okay, anything inside of your styles will also get rolled back along with what's specified in the state. Okay, the state just happens to have more properties. Where are we? More properties that we can change, such as background color is different, and the rotation may be different, and the color of the text may be different. Okay, hopefully that makes a little bit more sense in how when we change from one thing to another, we can animate over a certain period of time. Now I'm going to set this back to 150 milliseconds, and for the purpose of this video, I'm going to remove these easings. Okay. Now you can see here we've got two transitions, one for highlighted to unhighlighted, and then another one from unhighlighted to highlighted. Right. However, if you look at what comes after it, the animate function is specified, and it's the same duration for both directions. So what I'm trying to propose here is, do we need to write this twice? The answer is no, we don't. We can remove the bottom one, like so. And if I leave it as it is right now, we've lost that transition from unhighlighted to highlighted. So if I come in and save and I come over and I hover over, you're going to lose the transition. It just quickly just jumps, right? But when we hover out, we still got the transition, right? So how do we fix this? The answer is you've got to treat this as like a two-direction arrow now. So if I now save this, we're saying if we're going from highlighted to unhighlighted or vice versa, we're going to animate the differences between these two styles over the course of 150 milliseconds. So let's have a look at that. So this should now act exactly the same as it did before. So we go over it, we've still got that animation, that's cool. Hover out, we've still got the animation, hover in. So that's working exactly as it was. Alright, no change there. So that's one thing I want to show about transitions. The other thing I want to show about transitions now is how we can get from a component loading for the first time, how we can specify a transition for that. So just say, for example, we haven't loaded these tasks yet, but as soon as it's loaded, we want to apply a transition. How do we do that? And the answer is we have to use this void state. So at the moment we have 3 states set above of highlighted, unhighlighted, and activated, but all of these are under the condition that the component's been created already and the task status has been set, okay, to one of those values. That's only when these CSS rules will get applied. However, for when we're first loading the component for the first time, we want to transition in, we can use this void keyword, okay? And this is for the purpose of the component has not been created, has not been added to any view at this point, but as soon as we add it to the view, it goes from a void state to some other kind of state. Now by default in this component, it's going to go to an unhighlighted state, but what we generally do is we pretend like we don't know what kind of state it's going to go to. So we use a wildcard asterisk to represent that. Okay, so the asterisk means anything. Void means not yet constructed in the view or not yet loaded in the view. Okay, so from an unconstructed component to some kind of state after construction, we're going to do some stuff, right? Now what you normally do after that is you specify an array, because we want to specify as part of the void state what kind of state we want it to look like. And what a lot of people do in their examples is they'll translate the thing off screen and then they'll slide it in. I don't want to do that for this video. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to use the scale option. So I'm going to go transform. I'm going to now go scale, and I'm going to say as we come in, we're going to start at 0.5 the size of what the task is meant to be. So make it half the size before we animate, and then once we've done that, in fact I'm supposed to have put the word style here. I always forget to put that. So once we've done that, we've applied that half scale style to the initial state of the task. We now want to specify an animation length to which it will scale back up to its original size, which in the case of us, scale is of 1, right? But we need to supply a duration for that. So let's do that. So animate, and we're going to let's make it over 500 milliseconds. And that's all we need to write, okay? So we're animating over 500 milliseconds, a starting state or a void state, so i.e. we haven't come into the picture yet, to some kind of state, which will be unhighlighted in this case. We're going to start from 0.5, and we're going to go up to 1. And I know we haven't specified that here, but keep in mind the default state in the CSS is a scale of 1. Right, because we haven't supplied a scale essentially, so we know by default it's 1. But make sure that we go from 0.5 to 1 over 500 milliseconds. So you should see it grow a little bit before it actually loads in all the tasks. So let's save that and let's have a look. And did you see that? You may not have. If I'll refresh it once again, it grows. Right, it grows from half the size to full size. Okay. So that's pretty cool. We've now specified on load a specific transition. So just keep in mind when you're doing this that void is a special case of not loaded yet to some wildcard state, which can be anything. It could be activated. We could be going from void to activated. If I made this activated, for example, and went save and came over, they all activate from a starting state to an activated state. But it's still doing that scale, right? I could even go highlighted here. and that will go from an initial state to a highlight state, and then basically I have to toggle over to get everything out of its position. Alright, so I'll set this back to unhighlighted, but that was just to give you an idea. Now, this logic here is quite common in Angular 2 in terms of I want to perform some animation at the start before the thing's created, or just after the thing's created. So what they've done is they've given a shorthand for this, and basically it's just called enter. So colon enter, that is it. So if I come over, check once more time, you'll see it still grows, right? Now what if we want to do it when the component is getting destroyed? You know, basically we're bringing some other component in, or we're hiding them temporarily, or you know, that kind of stuff, right? Or we're using a route to load a new page. How do we get around creating a transition for that particular sequence? Well, to do this, I need to quickly show you, we basically need to toggle this on and off, right? We need to toggle these things with an ngIf. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to my component, and I'm going to create a property here called show tasks, right? And I'm going to set it to true to start off. And then inside my app component, underneath where I've specified all these tasks, I'm going to create a section here. So we'll go div, we'll go ID equals something. I'll come back to that. And then we're going to have a button. We're going to have two buttons actually. Let's create two buttons here. Copy and paste, copy and paste. And I'm going to put hide all and show all, like so. And I might give this thing a thing of task buttons, like so. So at the moment, when I come back over, we're going to have these two buttons, right? Hide all, show all, hide all, show all, so on and so forth. I just want to add a little bit of margin on this, so that's why I've added the ID here. So I'm just going to jump into the app component CSS file, and we'll put hash task buttons, and we'll add a margin top of, we'll say 20 pixels. This is just to give me some separation, so it's a little bit easier to read. Cool. Now I want to hide this button if we're hiding the images, and I want to hide this button if we're showing the images. So that's where this show task bit comes in. So come back here, and I'm going to put a hash ngIf of when we have show tasks, we're going to show that, and hash ngIf equals not show tasks, we're going to show that. If we're not showing the tasks, we're going to have that show all button. If we are showing the tasks, we're going to show the hide all. Now both these need to take a click event so that we can change that show task state. This quickly applies to both, and I'll call a function called toggle show tasks, and for the top one I'll put it set to false, and for the bottom one I'll set it to true. So I want to show tasks if I click the bottom one. So now we'll go and create this method. This is all glue code at the moment. We'll get back to the point in a minute of creating that transition. Show task boolean. So this dot show tasks equals show task, and it should be show tasks. Right. If I save this now, I come over, I go hide all, show all, hide all, show all. So at the moment it's only affecting the buttons, it's not affecting these components. So what we need to do is we need to pass in this show task through to the task component. So quickly coming back to the app component, I'm going to create another attribute here called show task, and the value of it will be show tasks. Okay. So we know this to be an input, so we come over to our task component.cs, and under the task status one, under the task one, sorry, I'll create another input like so, show task, and we'll set the boolean. Okay. So now we've got access to it here. What I want to do is I want to actually hide these tickets, so to speak, or tasks, whatever you want to call them. I want to hide it if show task is set to false. Okay. So as a result, I want to show them if they're set to true. Now we've seen all this stuff before. I'm just quickly going over it again in my head. So ng if equals show task. Okay. Now we'll save that, and I think that's all we need to do to basically destroy these components. So if I click hide all now, they're gone. Alright. If I click show all, they'll come back, they're reinitialized. But what we didn't see when we click hide all is we didn't see any animation. We just kind of saw it disappear. And that's it, right? There's no end animation. So how do we do this? Well, it's pretty straightforward. It's very similar to what we did for enter, right? Now remember that enter was when we went from void to some value of some sort. That was enter. When we want to do it the other way around, well, it's pretty straightforward. You just do it the other way around, right? So now we're going from some state to a void state because we're destroying the component. We now need to do some things. Now we don't need to specify a default style here because the default style is whatever state we're in at the moment. But just say as part of the animation as we're leaving, we want to specify the scale once again back to 0.5 like we have here. So we're scaling back down and then it will disappear. So we don't need to specify a style because that's an initial style state before the animation kicks in. We don't need this because we already have that initial state right here. So what most people do is they go animate, right? They'll specify their duration, so we'll say 500 milliseconds. And then as a second parameter, you can specify the type of animation, just like a style here. So I'm coming down and go style, and we can go the same as before. And in fact, this is not inside of an array. That's the mistake I always make. And then we just pretty much copy this line right here. Right, we just dump it in there. And then we just add a comma at the end to fix the compilation errors. So if I now save this, and we come over, you'll see it jumps up on hide, on load. If I click hide, they slowly disappear. If I click show, they come back. Hide, show, hide, show, hide, and you get the point, right? So now we've got transitions based on whether a component, is coming in for the first time or it's being removed. So that's pretty cool. And that's all I wanted to show in this video. So that's pretty much most of transitions. The only thing we haven't looked at more is animations. And the reason why I haven't looked at it in this video is because I'm going to do it in the next video. And that's what the purpose of the next video is going to be all about. Now, the last thing I forgot to mention very quickly here is when you go from star to void, it's the same as writing leave. Okay? That was the last thing I forgot to mention. You can see it's all the same. Okay, so the next video, we're going to focus on animation and we're going to focus on keyframing. So creating not just different kinds of animations, but changing the styles in between animation. And we're also going to look at something called easing and the different options that we have for that. Now, the tutorial GitHub repository will have some easing in there that I wrote myself for this lesson. I left it out in this video, but it's in the tutorial, the GitHub repository, which I will leave in the description of this video. But I'm going to explain it more in the next video. So I'm going to see you all then.